that is a nice package.
Athletic. And he's on with Dan Barrero right now.
As fate would have it, on the Bumper to Bumper program, this program will feature media hall monitors tomorrow. Kevin Seifert from Scheels. It's our Toys for Tots Day. Please come and see us. Scheels Superstore in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. A store that it's pretty easy to get lost in, and we hope you do. And today's hall monitor is Monday regular Jonny Athletic. And Johnny, I'm a bit perplexed because each of you and Seifert, I don't think put your heads together. I think you independently came up with this. Seemed to express some exasperation with the local populace's propensity to boo. In the case of the Vikings, in Seifert, he was at the Vikings game yesterday. He seemed... What's that noise?
Are you on the Scheels Ferris wheel right now?
It sounds like you might be on a... Yeah, it sounds like a calliope or something.
That's my luxury vehicle. I'm driving into the game and have a little beep there, so I apologize.
Okay, no problem. It was actually it was very pleasant. Seifert's bitter that the Vikings got booed leaving the field, I think, at the first half of a unimpressive offensive performance early. You apparently bitter that the Wolves fans had the temerity to get pretty hostile pretty quickly during the Sacramento Kings game that Gaardsy attended, although, of course, he left early. By the way, Gaardsy, there's some bitterness about the Edina privilege about you leaving early.
I'm happy to respond when there's time.
When there's time. In any case, so
make sure to star that text.
What are you guys? What are you and Seifert protecting exactly?
I don't know that I was protecting anything. I just said I was surprised that it came that quickly. As I thought about it a little bit more, I did kind of, and some fans rightly brought this up to me. The Timberwolves did raise ticket prices significantly this last year, coming off of the Western Conference Finals. You have demand up. They're taking advantage of that. Every team does it. It's not illegal. That's what you do to run a business. But I do think that factors in a little bit when you raise ticket prices to the degree that they did, making a huge trade right before this season, and then watch your team not just lose, but the way that they were losing, the way that they were performing. I understand, the frustration. I just was surprised that the booing was that vociferous, just given that I've lived through the dark days of this franchise when there were 15 wins and and how bad it was. And I just didn't think we were at that point yet, but that's not for me to decide. It's all up to them on how they're feeling. It just took me a little bit by surprise, given all of the euphoria of last year. You're all happy to be back and be relevant again. Now this team has hit some skids, and people were not hesitating to let them have it.
Well, there is, as Gaardsy mentioned earlier, and you've written about, and I would say that's part of my comeback. I'd say, well, people are reading you, Johnny, and you're writing about a lot of dysfunction right now, and I think they're paying attention. But the latest body language moment that got a lot of attention was was Randall not getting the ball out in the wing. Who had it in the baseline? Nikhil, and sort of the Randall, hanging head, looking around, kind of try. Again, these things happen. They don't just happen, obviously, to the Wolves. But I honestly think for a lot of fans, and I think for a lot of us, it's not the act of losing, the ups and the downs, because they happen, but I think it's the way it has taken place that I believe has left a worse taste in people's mouths than you could say there should be given the season they're coming off of. I really think that's a big part of it. The body language looks bad.
Yeah, that's fair, Dan. Absolutely. It's been a low-energy team, and especially, let's face it, you do juxtapose it against last season. Last season's defining characteristic was defensive tenacity. This was a team that, they didn't win every game. There were games that they played really poorly against teams that weren't very good. That happened. They stubbed their toe during the regular season some, and even in the playoffs as well. But one thing that group always brought was energy. And so I do think that there is a real frustration from fans, and I get that because the more that you talk to people in New York about Julius Randle and about just his playing style, he is not a demonstrative, emphatic type of a player. He is a guy who does hang his head every once in a while when things aren't going his way. That is not going to be the hair on fire defensive player that even Cat would, he was out of position some. He had his faults defensively, but he was always running around trying his ass off. And I do think that there are perceptions among the fans that this group is not playing as hard as it needs to. And Anthony Edwards has said that. He's been quoted saying that. So there is real frustration in that part. And I think that is completely understandable and above board for fans to be really disappointed with because, like you said, it's not that just that they're under 500 and all of that, but it's how they've gotten there playing poorly against bad teams. And that's been hard to watch at times this season, quite a bit.
Dilly's out tonight, or is he just still listed as questionable?
He's listed as questionable. We'll find out in a little while. I saw him. They have this stay in shape league where the guys who are not heavy rotation minute guys after shoot-arounds, they play in a pickup game just to stay in shape and to make sure that they're ready physically for any action that might come their way. And he was out there this morning when we were watching shoot-around and they were getting that game started. So I don't know if that ankle injury came in that pickup game or if he had injured it, previously and was just testing it out. But he is questionable. But bottom line, Dan, he's not playing right now in the rotation. I mean, the guy was plus 26, and he's played 5 minutes in the couple games since then. So I don't know that that's going to throw a wrench into Chris Finch's plans right now for the rotation.
Well, the alibi given for Friday night was the Clippers guards are too big. He'd have been mauled anyway. Do you buy that, or do you think that's you need to be a little bit more creative in terms of trying to find windows of opportunity for him?
Well, I do buy absolutely that the matchup was not a great one for him. I mean, they are big everywhere on the Clippers, in the front court and the back court. And so there would have been some challenges there, no question. But the one thing, and the other part of it was Nickeil Alexander-Walker was playing really, really well.
Right.
And so you don't want to take minutes away from Nickeil when he's got a groove like that. The one thing that I just continue to really struggle with is that they had 21 turnovers in the game. Like, they were awful offensively. Could not get anything going, especially when Conley came out and was not playing at point guard. And so sooner or later, he's going to have to play. And they're going to have to figure out ways to mitigate his weaknesses and hope that the strengths that he brings to the table overcome those. And so I'm sure that he will eventually get on the court, but it has been a puzzler to me that he played so really well against Houston and has barely seen the court in the 2-game set. All
right, let's do this. We've got a lot of good texts coming in. I want to talk Vikings with you. A couple more items regarding the Wolves, who are back in action tonight on the Fan. LeBron's in town. D'Lo is in town. The Los Angeles Lakers are in town. So we'll continue with Johnny. Don't forget, Ben Lieber will join us later this hour, his usual time, probably about 4:47. Don't go away. Kevin Seifert will be there tomorrow. And you tell me, Josh Metellus is going to be our Viking representative in the afternoon.
Yeah, which we're excited about.
Very much so. Jonny Athletic is... Johnny?
Oh, no.
Not Johnny. We'll try to get him back. He's already, I think, at Target Center for tonight's Wolves-Lakers game. I was going to ask him about D'Angelo Russell's availability tonight because D'Lo and I go way back, as most of you indeed know. Do you have questions for Johnny? Vikings related, NBA related, whatever's on your maybe flag planting related. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line is open. That's 64686. Let me read this text, and I'll give you a chance to respond to it. Would the Knicks be open to taking Randall and Dante back? It's not like the Knicks have been playing super great either. Is there any chance you think that there could be a reverse trade done where both teams say, hey, you know what? The devil we know is actually better than what we had on the other end here. So let's just call the whole thing off.
Yeah, I mean, look, the texter is right. The Knicks have gone through their growing pains as well, so this has not been smooth for either team. But with the way that Cat is playing offensively, I don't think there's any chance. And it has been real interesting around here, Dan, to see my mentions and how many people said, I knew we never should have given up Cat. I loved Cat. He was always the greatest. He loved being here, and we had to trade him away. And these are the same people that are saying, get this guy out of here. I don't want anything to do with him. And now the tune is changing a little bit. So that has been a little interesting to watch that unfold. He will come back in December here, a conquering hero, more popular than he's ever been in Minnesota, I think. Yeah,
you're probably right about that. All right, let's talk also Vikings. And we have an entree there via another booing-related text. Dan, I was at the Vikings game Sunday, and I heard the boos. I think it's okay to boo, but I break it down into macro booing and micro booing. When you boo a team that's 2-10, it's macro booing. When you boo a team that's 10-2, it's micro booing, having to do with the way the offense was performing, kind of a dull, listless game through the first half, which he describes as being okay. So as the Vikings were meandering, but clearly Arizona at the same time was not building massive leads, are you going, I think they're in trouble this time? I really think they're in trouble, or do you think the door was always open yesterday?
I thought that it was slightly ajar, I will say, but as the game went on, even when Sam Darnold and the offense started to get going a little bit, now all of a sudden it turned into Trey McBride was, the second coming of Steve Jordan and just getting whatever he wanted. And so then it became a situation where I wondered if they were going to get a stop when they needed to, as well as the defense had been playing for most of the day. And that's why I do think that Jonathan Gannon kind of bailed the Vikings out by kicking the field goal rather than going for it on fourth down at the end of the game, because that really opened the door. But I never thought that they were dead, Dan, but it certainly was a case of a team that just looked like they were getting caught off guard, a little out schemed, and then you had the Aaron Jones fumble and a few other things that they just couldn't get on track. So I was preparing for them to lose that game. And credit to Darnold for really coming through at the end there, but it did not look good there for a little while.
Last 3 games, Kirk Cousins, who's coming to town, 0 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, all 3 games losses for Atlanta. He is, of course, the $180 million man. Last 3 games, Sam Darnold, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a couple, of course, clutch drives last week and again, really throughout the fourth quarter when the Vikings scored on all their last 3 drives, right? Touchdown, field goal, and touchdown. I mentioned early, football's a funny game, man. If you go back to the beginning of the season, even for people who didn't necessarily think Cousins was worth, that much money at this point coming off injury, the fact that we're sitting here talking about Darnold excelling as we approach December for a team that has now won 5 in a row and is sitting there at 10-2, even if they've not been particularly declarative and dominant in many of these victories, and the big money quarterback goes to Atlanta with all these expectations, is sitting there maybe teetering on possibly even losing his job.
It's incredible, Dan. I mean, when you look at it and how it's turned out, because, I even at the start of this last season or even through the training camp, I believed that the Vikings made the right decision in letting Kirk Cousins go, especially at that price tag. I just didn't think that was the way to go. I just was kind of coming into this season assuming that, okay, this was the reset year. You take a step back. Yep. Darnold does what he kind of muddles through. J.J. McCarthy learns for a year. Then you kind of see what you have next season with all the cap space, and you just reset. But for the Vikings to be able to not just have a reset year, but have a year where 10-2 and absolutely are in the conversation for for being a playoff contender. I don't think they're as good as Philadelphia or Detroit, but I still think that they have a heck of a chance. And the way that Sam Darnold is playing quarterback in the last couple of games, he's not just game managing. No. He's making great throws in big spots. And so it is the absolute most ideal scenario for O'Connell, for Kwesi, and certainly it's going to be a rough homecoming for Kirk Cousins, because he's coming into a stadium that I'm sure is going to be kind of laughing and have their chest puffed out, even though he had a nice little run here. But it's falling apart there for Atlanta. What a disaster. So, yeah, 100%. How do you think he will be received? How do you think Vikings fans will respond when they see now he's number 18, number 8 here? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that they will probably appeal to their, kind of more petty nature, and maybe just really kind of more chuckling, I think, at Atlanta, laughing at the situation and kind of patting the Falcons on the head for their misfortune and how things are going for them. What I actually just kind of hope for is he just gets enough. I don't think you need to give him a standing ovation, emotional thing. I mean, he had a nice little career here, didn't go where you wanted it to, put up some big numbers, but I thought he acquitted himself well, especially towards the end of his career before the injury. But I'm sure that Vikings fans will be walking into the stadium on Sunday with their chest puffed out, with the 14s on their back and saying, we made the right move. Kwesi really cooked here. What a great job, and feeling good about themselves. And, it's probably not the wrong thing. This has all worked out beautifully for the Vikings, and it's not looking great for Cousins, even though he got all the money that he could ever want and more from them. No, I think the key point you made, too, is you could believe going into this or during this offseason that the Vikings made the right decision, the prudent decision, moving on from the big contract, but still believe, well, realistically, Atlanta's going to be better than probably the Vikings, because he's still got, I know he's coming off an injury, but he still knows how to throw the ball. So he's going to be in good shape. And we're going to, like you said, we're going to muddle by. Darnold will probably have some games where we go, oh, pretty good. And some other games we go, oh, my God, that's why he's been, basically tossed around the league to the degree that he has. That's what makes this so fascinating to me. Now, are we reaching, when does this become, if at all, in your mind, a Darnold dilemma moving forward past this season? Yeah. Yeah, I think there's going to have to be some real success in the playoffs, Dan, for that to happen. I certainly really am intrigued by what I've seen so far. I think, like, we were just talking about, it hasn't just been, kind of a product of the system, because I do think Kevin O'Connell's system has helped him immeasurably, but you look at some of the throws that he's making, some of the anticipatory throws that he's making in big spots, it is really, really impressive. But I think that he will do enough so far his body of work is enough to get him a very handsome pay increase somewhere to start next season. I don't think he has done enough yet to say we are going to put J.J. McCarthy on ice for another year or more and just go forward with Sam Darnold as our quarterback. Although I did find it interesting, Dan, at the end of that game, he does the interview with Pam Oliver after the game, the sideline interview, and he says, there's no place I'd rather play. And so it feels like he's starting to lay some breadcrumbs of, hey, this is where I want to be. I want to do it. And so it will be interesting just to see how all that side of it plays out. But I have to see something in the playoffs, like really impressive, I think, to get, me to come off of the idea that J.J. McCarthy is the quarterback of the future and of the immediate future for these Vikings. We're going to go, you know what's coming, right? The Vikings are going to finish 14-3 and have to go on the road in the first round. I talked about that. It could be Atlanta. I don't know if Atlanta might be doomed by then. Might be Tampa Bay. Yeah. I was talking to Cam Bynum about that, and he said, the players are even, that there's even some conversation. They were all losing their minds, apparently, in the hot tub watching the Bears meltdown late against Detroit.
on Thanksgiving. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how unprecedented that would be. It would have to be, I would think, fairly unusual to potentially finish with that kind of record and not be able to even have a single home playoff game in theory.
It'd be crazy. I remember like several years ago, the Seahawks hosted a playoff game and they were like 8-8 or something like that. And it was the Saints and they won the game. The Seahawks won the game. I think Marshawn Lynch had an incredible run in that game. But that's what you worry about, going on the road in the playoffs, in football. I mean, anything can happen and you can have a remarkable year and you could be staring down the barrel of a road game in Tampa. Like, would you want to play Baker Mayfield on the road? I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't either.
So it's, I think that it's going to be, we'll see. I guess we'll see down the stretch here because, it's funny. I look at Detroit and I say, well, they're a much better team than the Vikings, but they were really close when they played at the House of Pain, and Detroit only has one more loss. So something could happen, and maybe somehow the Vikings sneak up and grab that one seed in the North, and it works out. But I think they should prepare for a really dirty road game, unfortunately, because they certainly wouldn't deserve it if they finished 14-3.
Say hi to D'Lo tonight. Is he healthy? Is he playing tonight? Is he on the trip?
Well, he missed they played last night, so and he missed the game with an illness. And if I know him, he'll be ready to go tonight. So we'll see. I don't know if LeBron's going to play. I don't know if AD is going to play. Might be one of your favorites. Might be a schedule loss for the Lakers.
There you go.
We'll have to see how that all plays out. We'll find out here pretty soon.
Have fun tonight. We'll chat next week. Thanks, Johnny.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
That's John Krasinski. We call him Jonny Athletic. Ben Lieber is going to join us a little bit later this hour. Some very good texts coming in and a couple of juicy Vikings talking points to discuss as well.
Time now for the Vikings Report on The Fan, presented by Miller Lite. Vikings safety Cam Bynum joins Barrero next after this from Miller Lite.
What's your suggestion or your solution to the viral weekend of flag plantings in a number or at the end of a number of college football rivalry games? Does this become... Has this been going on a lot lately and I haven't paid attention to it? Did it all come together one day where, we see this earlier in the day, we're going to do it, we see the next team do it? And what's the answer?
It's happened from time to time. I saw that Ohio State and Michigan both got fined $100,000 by the conference.
That'll change nothing.
Probably. I think what has to change is the losing team has to take the L. And I tweeted about this on, Saturday or Sunday. To me, grabbing your flag and planting it on your opponent's midfield is stupid. I think that's dumb. I think the only thing dumber than that act is standing up for your field and defending your turf.
After you've lost the game. That, to me, is... favored by 24.
Oh, you're talking about Ohio State?
Ohio State.
Yeah, because you could be talking about any number of them,
Yes, there
right?
were several. Correct.
I just think it's the dumbest football act that we have, and I've seen it firsthand when the Gophers tried to stop the Badgers years ago from chopping down the goalposts.
Forgot about that
which
one,
they always do.
Yeah.
And Jerry Kill after the game going, I kind of like the fight. And I'm like, what are you talking about, the fight? Barry Alvarez, as AD, is in the end zone screaming at the players, you should have fought that hard during the game. What are we doing? It's stupid. Does it feel good to have your opponent, your rival, stake their flag? No, it does not. But you have to take the L. And I was encouraged, a couple different people. James Franklin did it earlier at USC, and I don't always love everything James Franklin says, and he got into his own meat grinder with Mike Loxley because Loxley was bitter that he ran up the score, and I loved his response. I'm playing the 3s and 4s. My job is to let them play.
Yes.
And you're playing cover 0, so you're trying to stop me. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
I thought, now, he says some stuff that sometimes rankles me too, Franklin.
Me too.
But he went and grabbed the Penn State player at midfield at USC and said, we're not doing that. That's stupid. I love that.
Well, the same thing happened, I think, Sarkisian with Texas. He moved him away. I think what I got into on Sunday is, it's really both. People need to learn how to win better and to lose better, both.
Yes.
But I think it goes back to the coach. I really do. I think if your coach ahead of time has the proper respect of his players and he says, we're not doing that, period, and celebrate the crap out of it. You don't have to, I'm not asking you to walk shy and retiring to the tunnel after you win a game like that in Columbus, Ohio. Frolic, have fun on the field, celebrate with your teammates, but we're not going to do that because in the end, it actually takes away from what should have been a marvelous moment.
Agree.
So yep. I really think the influence, I don't buy that coaches have no control of that. I disagree.
They do.
They have control if they want to take control.
Yes.
Have we ever tried to plant the flag?
I don't remember. I just talked about this on the Pair and a Spare pod. I remember a Friday night walkthrough at State College. Basement Brews team started stomping around on the midfield logo and screaming "Our house." And now nobody can go on the field anymore at Penn State. They stopped that. They put guards around it. I think they lost. It was Kajana Carter. They lost the next day.
Well, how about your guy Matt Rule? Now, was he really behind the idea we're not going to shake hands?
I'm glad you brought that up.
We're mad because they taunted us after they beat us 4 of the last 7 games?
That's also, to me, completely childish.
Exactly.
At midfield. I loved the Iowa player, Jay Higgins, who went and found Matt Rule to shake his hand. That's epic.
It's tremendous.
That's by the way, you can't lose a game any more and then win a game than Iowa did on Friday night. Correct. It's incredible to win a game with 5 first downs.
That's Iowa.
But that is Iowa. Especially Iowa and Nebraska. And it's just got to drive them crazy. That to me is the other stupidity. It's you're not proving anything by not shaking hands at midfield. I don't understand this.
Oh, they're serious about this.
Huskers are for real.
Didn't they blow a 10-0 lead?
They did. They
win
did.
the game.
I know. I don't get it.
We'll spend more time on it later.
But we don't have
week.
Man cards. We don't understand it.
Well, you especially, Dinah.
Never.
At least I can, say I grew up in a steel town, Gary, Indiana.
And you wear that every day. There's no doubt.
You see the blue collar in me every day, don't you?
See right down to your ginger ale.
U.S. Steel Open Hearth number 4.
Right down to those mini cans. Yeah, right down to those 2 mini cans.
Ben Lieber is coming up next right here on The Fan.